something that was brought to my attention quite recently, which I already knew about, but maybe I hadn't thought about for some time, is that most people out there think that this crime against a child or a teenager only happens in certain family setups or in certain communities. And when I was speaking to the person that reminded me about this, I was just like, yeah, I mean, I just completely haven't thought about that for some time. And I believe on my particular platforms, one of the things that I need to change is the fact that I'm always focusing on children being sexually abused in an in-person setting. So person on person. And I feel like my focus on the crime and that type of situation leads people to be like, that would just never, ever happen in my home. Like, we're so far away from that crime ever happening to one of my children in my house, or where they go and play football, or when they're at their friend's house, that what I need to start doing is broadening the discussion on my pages, because sexual abuse can happen in so many different ways. And I know we've already brought up the definition of sexual abuse on my last podcast, so I won't do that again. But we know that that it is when somebody entices a child or teenager into sexual activity, whether the child understands it or not, and that is sexual abuse. And what I learned also quite recently is a good way of describing that is to group this into two different groups, and that is you have contact sexual abuse, which is the obvious person on person, but you also have non-contact sexual abuse. And people may be wondering, I believe lots of people would wonder, well, how can sexual abuse happen if it's non-contact? I don't understand. Well, we know the online space, and we know that enticing a child or teenager into sexual chat online is considered sexual abuse. It's against the rules, it's immoral, it's exploiting that child for something they shouldn't be exposed to, and we don't allow it, right? So that's the rules. It's still considered sexual abuse. And then, very coincidentally, around that time I was thinking about this, a friend sent me this video, and it is of a group of men who pose, who go and follow chats of adults speaking to young teenagers, and then they set up a meet, and then they go and they confront the person that went to meet a young teenager. And the reason why this particular video is so striking to me is because it actually happened in my hometown, or the place that I grew up in. I don't live there anymore, so that's why my friend sent it to me, because he still lives there, and it's pretty striking. So let's get into it.
It's not going to be like that. Okay. No, you're all good. Right, Ashley, can you tell me how old the girl is you come to meet today? Speak up really loud so I can hear you.
She said she was 14. I did not believe her.
Okay. How long would you say that conversation's been going on for?
5 to 8 days.
5 to 8 days. Okay. It's a little bit longer than that. You acknowledge that some of your behaviour in that conversation with the child has been inappropriate, yeah?
Okay, let me give you some context, because I know lots of people listen to this podcast only and they don't see the visual. So let me explain the video that I'm going through. At the moment, the mobile phone camera is facing the ground, and I can see two pairs of trainers. The guy who's holding the mobile phone, who is the guy who follows these chats online. I don't know the details of how he actually does this, but has obviously been recording or monitoring this chat between this guy in the blue trainers, who's sitting on a chair, and has this guy with the blue trainers who's sitting on the chair has gone to meet a 14-year-old girl and has been confronted by this man who's been following the chat. Now, I'm sure we'll understand a little bit more about how they follow these chats, but you may have heard of paedophile hunters, and that is essentially what they do. I think lots of them actually pose as young teenagers online, and when they engage with adults, they set up a meeting, and then they sting the person. So that's the setup. If you're listening to this, on your podcast app, I urge you to go and watch it on YouTube, because you'll get a more fuller experience. But it still works. It still works. Don't worry about it. Let's continue.
I acknowledge it, but I was just testing to see if she was, because the picture she sent, she looked
Okay. Would you admit that some of the content of the chat you've been having with this child got a little bit inappropriate?
I do admit it, yes. I'm a very boring person, and I just thought,
Yeah.
it was just exciting at the moment, that moment.
Yeah. And you've met her today. What did you say that you were going to do when you met her today? Yeah. Okay. Look, I'm going to record this for my safety and yours. It's to say we've not hurt each other. The chat started on the 15th of August.
Okay. I just need to explain one more thing. Look at his face. He is. You know what? I have watched a couple of these Sting videos in the past, right? He is a middle-aged man. Looks like a normal guy. And what really struck me about this video is, if he was in your workplace with a suit on, or whatever clothing is being worn in that workplace, you wouldn't think anything of it. Like he's not. What I'm trying to get at is I think we still think that offenders against children and teenagers, you'd be able to spot them a mile off. This guy's an average looking bloke, and look how fuck, I've been caught. He that is all that's written on him, isn't it? That's all that's written on him. And I'm sorry about the sound quality of this. Obviously, he's recording it on his mobile phone. I'm going to try and adjust it as much as I can in the edit. So I hope it's okay for you.
Can you tell me why you chose this child?
I was actually in the chat room on the...
Yeah, don't mention the app. Okay, yeah, go on, that's right.
And I was just interested in chatting to people. And then the conversation got out of hand. I never in a million years thought that she was 14.
Okay.
Lies.
We've intercepted your conversation with that child. Okay. I'm going to be honest with you. As I said to you, we're an online child protection team. We monitor the internet. When people misuse the internet, we come and have a chat with them, and we see where things go from there. The chat that you've been having with this child is some of the worst I've seen in over 300 predators. It's absolutely disgusting. I'm going to go through some of it bit by bit, but I want to know why you're doing it. You, to me, seem like a successful individual. You've got businesses. You've clearly got a good job. Why are you predating on 14-year-old children?
I didn't want my question why she was in a chat.
Yeah. Listen, I'll be really fair with you if you're really honest with me. In that pack is every single word you've said. So, I mean, it's disgusting.
I know.
In your own words, you say a beautiful 14-year-old girl wants me to be inside her. Why would you say that to someone who you didn't think was 14? You obviously knew this child was 14.
No.
You did?
I didn't. Many times I asked.
Yeah, look.
The first message.
Yeah.
The first message I sent was, you don't look 14.
You're trying to tell me that you didn't think this child was 14?
That's a very hard question to answer. Initially...
I'll tell you what, listen, it's a really easy question for me to answer, because you've referenced this child's age multiple times. She's told you she's 14 on a number of occasions. You've said things like, I'm going to make a 14-year-old come in my mouth. Why would you...
Look at him put his head in his hands. It's like, you know what, it has relevance to the Hugh Edwards story that I reported on a couple of podcasts ago, doesn't it? It's like when they get caught, it's when they get caught, all they're thinking is, I can't believe I've been caught. I can't believe it. He's trying to backtrack here and there, right? He's trying to backtrack saying, I didn't know he was 14. Well, this gentleman that stung him has got all the messages, right? So this man that's been messaging this 14-year-old has made advances using the reference that the young girl is 14. The reason why I want to do this, the reason why this is very important, is because we need to broaden the conversation now. Okay, on my platforms, we need to broaden the conversation now, because sexual abuse is not just happening in person. It's not just happening to children. Teenage girls are extremely vulnerable. Teenagers are extremely vulnerable by nature. We've talked about that quite a few times. And we have your average men out there who are being turned on by exploiting something that is forbidden. And this is an avenue that I do want to go down with experts, bringing expert guests onto this podcast. And by the way, if you are a follower of this podcast, you would have noticed that the last 5, 6, 7 episodes of this have all been either me bringing a discussion to the table or me reviewing a video like I am today. I do sometimes bring guests onto the podcast. It just hasn't happened that way recently. I've got one lined up probably for the next episode. So I want to bring on experts to understand why this man, who's, I believe during the video, maybe a little bit later, because I've already watched this, right? He says that he's 40 years old, a successful businessman with a very good job, and not like a good-looking bloke, right? A good-looking bloke. He's not. He's just a normal-looking bloke. And why? What is it that has turned him on so greatly about a 14-year-old girl that he has gone to meet her and in some respect been bold enough and brave enough and arrogant enough to do something that he will know, I was just about to say, has massive repercussions, but we saw, again, referencing the Hugh Edwards situation, repercussions are weak and embarrassing. But he will know that that is so against the rules, he can't believe it, but he still went for it. He still actually went to meet the 14-year-old. But again, what is it that's turning them on about it? Now, I would love to get psychologists on or experts on to understand this. Now, I have a little bit of knowledge, and I once was told, which really did fascinate me actually, that in general terms, men are aroused by the forbidden. So in a legal sense, that's why we find adultery. There is a thrill to be gained out of adultery. There is a thrill to be gained out of outdoor sex in dangerous places. There's a thrill to be gained with I don't know, but with the forbidden, there's something in us. That's what was explained to me. I found it fascinating. So maybe there's something in that for this, because as I always say, we can't just keep saying that's disgusting and that's evil. We need to understand why this is happening so much. And just before I start the video again, I reckon we would be terrified to understand actually how many times a female is approached indecently online by an adult male. And I bet you, if we were to interview your average female that grew up with the internet, not one of them would say they weren't approached indecently online. I'm very confident to say something along those lines. Okay.
Say that to someone else's kid.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's a mistake. I don't make any mistakes.
This is more than a mistake. This is some of the worst sexual grooming, sexual communications I've ever seen. This disgusted my entire team. What were you going to do when this child turned up? I know exactly.
No.
What were you going to do?
It was just even if she wanted to chat,
You were going to reach round and touch her knickers to take her knickers off. You were going to try and have sex with her in the car.
it was a conversation that was poking to see where it would go, because I genuinely did not believe she was 14 and Why was she in an adult group? I questioned her.
Can you understand why I would question that? Because nothing in your chat log says you're not 14. In fact, what it does say is you're 14.
I have no attraction to anyone.
Okay. No, fair enough.
The lady. That's my thing. I'm not.
You said to the child that you're scared that she's so young that you'd get into trouble.
Wow.
Yes.
Why would you say that then, if you thought she was older?
He's got no answer.
I don't know. It's spur of the moment.
How many times do you think you asked the child to delete your chat? 5? Why would you ask her to delete the chat?
Okay, so this is good. This guy's doing a phenomenal job. And then we get to this, don't we, where he said he's scared she's so young. During the chat, he said he's scared she's so young, and he's asked her to delete the chat so many times. So he knows, 100% he knows that what he's doing is wrong, but he's just driven to do it. That sexual want or that sexual arousal is like from the beginning of time. Do you know what I mean? From the beginning of time, and it's like it's just that it's just overpowered him. It's overcome him, and I'm not making excuses for him, right? I'm not making excuses. He's a 40-year-old man. Do you know what I mean? He's my age, right? I'm 39, right? He's got greys in his beard. He's got greys on his top. Like he's a matured, fully developed man. I'm not making excuses for him, but we can see how he knew what he was doing was wrong, but he was so driven to interact. He was so turned on by it. Let's see.
You sure it's not that you didn't want you to get in trouble? You actually said, and your exact words were, I'm going to turn you into a woman. Listen mate, what right do you have to turn someone else's kid into a woman? How old are you, 40? 39. What right do you have?
I don't know why.
To turn someone else's?
I don't know why.
14-year-old children, they can't consent to sex. It's statutory rape. You are, and I'm being deadly honest with you, a seriously dangerous sexual predator. You are. Listen, it doesn't matter. The content of what you've written in those chat logs, the descriptions, the level of detail, the amount of grooming that you've done on this child since the 15th of August, which has led to you being in a car park to meet that child, the purposes of sex.
And I constantly said, are you sure?
And she never said yes once. Never said yes once. In fact, Stuart, she asked you to stop on a number of occasions. Yeah. I'll come and have a chat with you in a minute. The police are on their way.
You're interviewing him.
Yeah, I'm not interviewing him.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm recording the conversation.
Just hold the police.
They're on their way, man. Thanks. You.
Okay, so that's a member of the public. I'm so sorry about the sound. I wish this guy had a microphone. It's so annoying, isn't it? So that's a member of the general public that's come over and said, you're interviewing him, you should be leaving that to the police. Now, this is a very interesting point, because I have seen, I think it was on national TV, where paedophile hunters were being interviewed and asked whether they should be taking the law into their own hands. What's the word that they use? I think it's vigilante. I'm pretty sure that's what they use. Let's search it. 1 second. Okay, here it is. Vigilante definition: a person who tries in an unofficial way to prevent a crime or to catch and punish someone who has committed a crime, especially because they do not think the official organisations, such as the police, are controlling the crime effectively. Vigilantes usually join together to form groups. So that's essentially what this is. And I have heard discussions about the people saying to the people that are carrying out these types of actions, like this man who's holding a mobile phone, that they shouldn't be doing it. They should be leaving it to the police. But do you know what? The police are not doing enough about this. Even the good police can't do enough about this because they just don't have the resources. I mean, they've got more cases on their table than they can handle. And that is with the in-person historic sexual abuse cases. And I know that to be true because that's what the police officers that couldn't pursue the man that did this to me told me. And their funding is forever being cut by the government. And so if you think about how they're supposed to handle the online space, I mean, it's impossible for them to be able to handle the scale of this problem. So these people, and again, I've watched this video already. These people that have caught this man, they're all fathers, right? And they're like, we are not standing for this. So if the police, the official organisations can't go out there and do this job, we are going to do it. So I don't know what if you think that these I don't know if I should use the term these vigilantes. Technically that's correct, but I think vigilante has a negative connotation to it. So these people that are going out and doing this and kind of taking the law into their own hands, I wonder what you think, if that's the correct thing or not correct thing to do.
She actually asked you to stop on multiple occasions, and you carried on. Yeah. Can you hold this? Keep it right down. I don't want the premises on it at all. Keep that. Can I have a quick chat with you? Come on. No, I'll show you in. So,
Okay, I think the police have arrived, you know. He cannot believe it. I mean, can you even think, just as the video's playing, I don't know what's going to happen next actually, I think this is as far as I got to when I actually watched it, but can you imagine how he's feeling right now? And before you say, I don't care how he's feeling, just think about how he's feeling right now. He has been caught, right? He has been caught. The world is flashing, his life is flashing before his eyes, literally at this moment. And if you see his body language here, all he is thinking is, fuck,
sorry about that.
I literally can't believe it.
Extremely dangerous. You're here today. You've turned up. It's gone from a fantasy to an outright action. You're literally in the car park waiting for this child to turn up. You've asked her, incited the child to masturbate, to rub herself up and down in bed.
Yes. A lot of it is like not taking into account their age, because I did not believe that.
Yeah.
You can tell by.
But why didn't you say that?
I told her I didn't.
No, you didn't. Not once. You said at one time that you thought she might. You said, "Are you police?" in like a kind of jokey way.
No, I kind of knew. I felt that was the case, and that's why I was pushing and pushing.
But you didn't question once. Can I give you a piece of advice? If you try to use "I didn't think she was a child" as a defence, you're gonna suffer badly, and I'll explain to you why. You absolutely fell in love with this child, is how I would describe it.
Wow.
Okay, listen. I do hundreds of these. I've never seen anything like this.
How do you feel about that statement? You fell in love with the child. How does that make you feel? That's weird, isn't it? Because that turns into, and the guy mentioned, didn't he? He's done hundreds of these. So for him to say you fell in love with this child means, you know, we have to allow his statement to hold some weight, right? Because he's seen so many of these conversations. So that turns things, that adjusts things, doesn't it? Because we are considering this man as a predator, a dangerous criminal, a psychopath. He is all those things, right? Let me just be clear about that. He is all those things. But it just makes it even more unusual, doesn't it? If we consider that through their chat process, he actually fell in love with her. He became obsessive with her. He couldn't think of anything else but meeting her, and the sexual chat comes into that. But I can imagine that there was all sorts of approaches of like persuading her and telling her how beautiful she was, and how he can make her feel amazing and how pretty she was. And honestly, if you are a parent of a daughter and you are listening to this, if you are a parent of a daughter, then please just chat to them about the online space and let them know that there are people out there that will approach them indecently. They are not to respond. They are to come and speak to you as soon as it happens. They will not be in trouble when it happens, but we are there to help them not fall into the traps that these men set up. Please, if you are a parent of a daughter, please have that conversation at home. If you are not a parent of a daughter and you know a parent of a daughter, please send this podcast to them and just let them know that this is out there, and it's not your 50-year-old lonely bloke behind a computer screen with no mates. It's normal blokes. It's normal blokes.
This is some of the worst online sexual grooming. So you've got sexual communication with a child. You've got inciting a child to masturbate. You've got facilitating a child meet. You've got turning up to meet a child following online sexual grooming. Do you have any idea the severity of those charges?
I wonder if going to meet an underage child carries the same punishment as actually meeting them and carrying out the abuse in real person. I believe both of those actions should carry the same sentence. I'm not sure if they do.
You could. Sorry. No, go on. You speak. Apologies.
I don't believe I was groomed. I thought it was a two-way conversation. I've never groomed. I was groomed as a kid. I'm not that person. I genuinely did not believe she would handle it.
When you have a conversation to and fro with a minor online,
Not in your head. I can get that you're discussing
I'll ignore him. He's fine. These guys get very frustrated because they're all fathers, okay? And if we hadn't have intercepted this situation, you know, and you had have got that young child into your car, I'm very, very much certain that something inappropriate would have happened to that kid. Okay? So, those 4 charges, do you know how serious they are? They're Crown Court charges. I've seen people get custodial prison sentences of 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Online sexual harm prevention order, sex offenders register.
I haven't done anything wrong in my life. This is a fucking risk that I didn't think she was underage. I took the risk because my life is just so bogged down with business and in investment and ridiculous things at the moment. It was a piece of excitement that got a tad out of hand.
Listen,
I genuinely didn't think she was.
I appreciate your honesty, but it is what it is. The second we saw you, we've rung the police. They're on their way. They could be 10 minutes. They could be half an hour. Okay? Listen, we're going to stay here, going to stay nice and calm. No one's going to hurt you, all right? You're going to stay nice and calm. No, you stay exactly where you are, okay? No. Just stay where you are. You're going to be arrested for this, 100%. You're going to be taken to the police station this evening, okay? And then tomorrow you're going to be interviewed. You've got a period of reflection for the next 10 or 12 hours where you need to be honest with yourself. Look at me. I've read word for word, as it's been happening, everything that you've been saying since the 15th of August.
Wow.
I've known every word. I know how serious this is. Look at me. I know how serious it is. And I understand why you're upset. But you need to be honest. You have a serious sexual attraction to this child.
Okay. So what do you think the punishment should be? Have a think about that. Do you think... let's start with life in prison. Do you think that it should be life in prison? Now, many people will say yes. This man has groomed a child, enticed a child into sexual chat online, and has gone to meet that child, 14-year-old, a teenager, and would have done whatever he could have done meeting her. I think we all agree it's not like they were just meeting for chats, right? He would have loved to have done all the things he'd been describing through the chat to her in person. So for me, without having the opportunity to think about it any deeper, I believe that should carry the same sentence as if he had actually met the child and carried out the abuse. So the sentence should be the same for me. There's going to be lots of people that think life in prison. I would love to see life in prison for this man, because he committed the offence, right? And the reason why I'd like to see life in prison for this man is because one of the reasons is we need to send a message out to society and men in particular and say, we will not tolerate this. We will not tolerate this. Right, this is a crime where you don't go down. You resist that temptation, right? You don't let the temptation get the better of you and act on it. It doesn't matter what you've got in your head, what turns you on, what fantasies you have. When it comes to anyone here in the UK under 16, if you are over 16, you are not to go there. If you do, you are going to be hit with the full force of the law. Personally, I would love for a world like that, but we know that is not it's not practical, because first of all, our prisons are full in this country. So what you're going to start doing, like building new infrastructure and new prisons to house all these people, impossible. No one would ever invest enough money to do that. When I was reporting on the Hugh Edwards story, which, by the way, I think that was 2 podcasts ago, go check that out. I heard that the statistic was 2 out of 10 people who get caught with child sexual abuse material, images and videos, real recordings of children being sexually abused, if they get caught in possession of that, 2 out of 10 of those ever see any prison time. The rest are all on suspended sentences, all on the register, etc. So what do you think would be a suitable punishment for this man? Now, because I know that life in prison for this man would never happen, and we would never be able to make it happen. It's too expensive. The next thing is, for me personally, I strongly believe that this should be the case, that they should be on the sex offenders register for the rest of their lives, because any type of punishment from here on out for this man is not going to change what's in his head. Even if you sent him to prison for 5 years, 10 years, he's not going to come out and not find that fantasy a turn on, or at least it's very unlikely. He's still going to be turned on by the same stuff. So, another reference to Hugh Edwards, because I think it's important. He got a 7-year... he was put on the sex offenders register for 7 years, and it just didn't make any sense to me, as if like after 7 years he's not going to be attracted to that kind of perverse fantasy. So for me, at the minimum, it's we need to monitor everything that he does, because he acted on his temptation. He's now not allowed to do certain jobs. He's now not allowed in certain places. Etc, etc. His online activity should be monitored strictly. I mean, where are we going to find the resource for all of this to monitor someone's online activity strictly? I mean, it would take so much manpower, but I don't know. What do you think? Like, I'm interested. I really am.
I do not have a sexual attraction to... I like older women. This was a stupid sexing thing. I never sexed. It got out of hand.
I don't want to be a regret. I'm here to teach you whatever you want to learn. Someone else's kid.
I thought she was intrigued. I've never been in that situation before.
You thought she was a child. You wanted to teach her how
I
to...
didn't think she was underage. I said at the beginning, you do not look 14.
But she told you she was 14.
Well,
And she looks 14.
Adult chat room.
It's not an adult chat room. All kids, listen, buddy, can I explain something to you? Okay. Kids get onto all sorts of apps. The one that she's on, it's not a dating site, it's a chatting app. Children go into all sorts of places they shouldn't do. It's our responsibility as adults, when we encounter someone who's young online, or someone that shouldn't be there, or a vulnerable adult, to support them, report them, block them. It's our job as parents, as fathers, as men.
I'm a father.
I know you are. 11-year-old, 12-year-old.
And a daughter.
What was that? Did he say he's got kids?
Does she live with you?
You can hardly hear
Be
his
there, or
voice.
vulnerable adult to support them, report them, block them. It's our job as parents, as fathers, as men.
I'm a father.
I know you are. 11-year-old, 12-year-old.
Wow. He's got kids too. Oh my goodness. He's got an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old too. And that is another reason for us to highlight this is just your average men. This is just your average men. There is that stereotype that the media portray is so incorrect. It's leading us down the wrong path with the awareness around this crime. I can't believe it.
And a daughter.
Jesus Christ almighty. Does she live with you?
She does. I live with my partner. I haven't told the whole story.
Makes it even worse.
It was a fucking stupid mistake, and I need to. Oh my God, what's going on with my life?
It's your responsibility as a father. I'm a father to boys, I'm a father to girls. I would never behave in this way. If I came across that child online, I would never... Huh?
Have you ever done drugs?
That's none of your business.
What the hell?
But I think most people have. What, are you trying to say you were on drugs when you were doing it? What relevance is that?
I've never taken drugs. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I've got no vice in my life. I work. This is a fucking mistake.
Yeah.
I thought I'd try and have a bit of fun on yeah,
Let's just say hypothetically, because he doesn't actually have to answer any questions. I'm a police officer.
Wow. Okay.
My name's
Okay,
Richard.
police officer.
That's absolutely fine.
From Bishopsgate Police Station.
Thank you very much.
Just have a quick question.
Yeah, 100%.
Quickly see some of your evidence.
Yeah, of course you can.
And then I'll do
Can you just stand over there? Just point that over there. I'll show this gentleman the evidence.
Keep it on the floor, Nick.
Yeah, just keep
Okay, so police have arrived.
Just to fill you in what's going on, we've had an off-duty police officer approach. He wants to review the evidence. He's asked us to cease questioning and not really sure on what's going to go on from there. We'll keep you posted. Thank all you lovely people for tuning in. Just stick with us.
Okay. I'm not sure what happens now. I didn't know I ever got to this bit watching the video. Let me just fast forward it and see if there's any more stuff going on. Or whether he's just holding the camera to the floor whilst... we got a bit more here. Hold on.
Yeah, let him stand up. Just stand around him. Go on, stand up.
sorry.
Can I just say to you, though, what you were saying earlier on? You said you asked Nick, have you taken drugs before? Because obviously that's making a mistake. Just hypothetically, say I took drugs in my past. Who am I hurting doing that? Myself. I'm not creating victims. Do you understand that?
Well, the hypothetical is that you could potentially get in a car and drive or do something bad and affect other people. No, do you know what I'm saying?
No.
We all fuck up.
Nothing's worse than talking to a
Yeah.
kid.
I didn't believe
Yes, you did.
No.
Yes, you did. How many times you referenced 14-year-olds? Yes, you did.
Yes, and that's why I kept saying.
The problem is when he says we all fuck up, what he's doing is he's only feeling like this because he's been caught, isn't he? He's only feeling like this because he's been caught. Throughout the process, he didn't have these emotions. Now he's been caught, he's backtracking and he's saying it was all a mistake when, he's only sorry now that he's been caught.
Absolutely not.
I think you're beyond silly. If you want my opinion, you're beyond silly.
Yeah.
Not silly. You just said you're not silly. I'm saying you're beyond silly. What you've done has gone way beyond silly. Mistakes.
Yeah.
It's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. Or a fuck up. It's way beyond that.
It's
I think what you've got to do is look at the bigger picture on the carnage you're causing.
And
Through a bit of curiosity.
The crazy thing is, that explosion in the O2. There's a fucking paedophile in there that had sex with two 15-year-old girls. And I thought, oh my God, I don't want to be that. That's disgusting.
Yeah, you thought, oh my God, I don't want to be that. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go online and start messaging underage children.
Because that was literally 2 days ago, or 3 days ago. And I thought, that's not me. And that's why I asked, are you sure? I can't understand, are you sure?
Right, guys, can we give this gentleman some space, please?
Yeah.
Okay, police have come back, I think.
Okay. Right, guys, I'm going to cut this live. There was an off-duty police officer in the pub. He's really happy with the evidence we've got. He's gonna arrest him now. Actually, I don't want to put the pub on. It's not fair. They've asked not to. We're going to end the live now. Well done, Rosie. Smashed it out of the park. Really, really good. I'll catch up with you guys later.
Okay, that's the end of that. So these people are on Facebook Live. I'm going to, I think they're called London Underground. I'll put the link to their Facebook page in the description. I did try to find a contact details for them because I wanted to write to them to see whether they'd come onto this podcast so we could actually talk about the work that they're doing. But I did notice that they wrote that they're not really interested in doing interviews and making themselves a public profile. They're just here to catch these people and go and confront them when they're meant to be meeting children and teenagers. And so they're not interested in doing interviews or anything like that. Fair enough. They're just fathers that have had enough. Now, I just want to finish with not controversy, right? Not controversy. It's not controversy, but I do want to finish with a point that I think it's interesting at the very least to think about. And I know a couple of people on my YouTube channel will have a lot to say about this. So you hear me say children and teenagers a lot when I talk about underage people. And I often split those categories into two. And the reason why is because children are very of different nature to teenagers. Children don't have a sexual bone in their body. Teenagers have sexual hormones and they're developing into young adults to be adults. So they're interested in sexual interaction. Image is a big thing for them. Maybe in early teenage years, some are engaging in sexual interaction with their peers at parties, etc., etc. Now, first question is: do you think that any adult that engages with an underage person, the punishment should be different depending on whether they're a child or a teenager? Now, that actually doesn't make that much sense when I say it. I don't know. I wonder what you think about that, first of all. But I don't think that was the correct way for me to explain it. Should we have a blanket rule for all offenders that offend against somebody who is under the age of 16? Should the sentence change depending on the offender's age? So if the offender is 21 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, should the sentence then change? And why? They're all adults, so I'm not sure. I know we have this thing, don't we, where your prefrontal cortex is not developed until you're 25. Does that mean a 21-year-old compared to a 30-year-old will be treated differently? Now, here's the big thing that I wanted to talk about, because on my last podcast there was a few comments around this, and I'm actually interested in this point of view because everybody's got an opinion. If the 14-year-old that this man was messaging was very forthcoming and she was engaging in the conversation and she was actually playing her role in the sexual chat, and maybe because, and we have to accept this kind of thing, maybe because he made her feel empowered, he made her feel attractive, he made her feel excited. She felt like a grown-up when she was chatting to this man about these types of things. And because she is going through puberty, we make an assumption there, she was getting also a thrill out of the sexual chat. So maybe we're just presuming here, maybe she messaged him a few times, she initiated the conversation a few times. Let's say that was the situation. Do we have hang on, just bear with me, because this is not easy for me to try to explain. But the few comments that I got on my last podcast was, well, because she was not being directly harmed in the process, because she was initiating, contributing, playing a part, as I mentioned, we shouldn't call her a victim. And I was like, where's that opinion coming from? And what I got from, and this is not the first time I've heard this concept, what I got from that was, well, if we label her as a victim, even though she at at this age, at the age of the time she was chatting, 14, she didn't feel. Let's say she came forward. Just bear with me, please, while I try to explain this. I'm trying my best. This is very difficult. Let's say if we interviewed that 14-year-old at the time when she was 14, she'd say, look, all right, it's wrong. Do whatever you want with him, but I'm cool. Like, we were just having fun. All right, it was against the rules. Maybe she says, I'm sorry. And she says, do what you want with the man with regards to the justice system, a criminal system. But I'm cool. Like, I'm all right. If she come from that point of view, is labelling her as a victim going to lead her to go down a road where she's like, oh, I don't like that, actually, when she was previously okay with it? That's some of the conversation that a few people on my platform are bringing to the table. So that's all very interesting. Now, for me personally, I'm pretty sure the psychologists, the psychiatrists, etc. out there will be like, yes, but she may not be feeling offended against right now because she's a 14-year-old child. But when she gets to 25 and when she gets to 35, she will recognise that she was exploited by a 40-year-old man and made to do things that were immoral, and she was taken advantage of, and that is the result of that is trauma, right? So I wish I was more educated in bringing this part of the conversation to the table. So a few people that are on my platforms, there's a few on Facebook too, they're bringing the conversation that we are addressing this completely incorrectly, because young teenagers are involved in sex with their peers. So if they then get involved in sex with an adult, we should be more lenient to the situation. I think this situation's slightly different because he's 40 years old, right? What does a 40-year-old want to do with a 14? What has a 40-year-old got to even chat with a 14-year-old about, right? It's exploitation. It's taking advantage of that young teenager. But this was something that was brought to the table, and I just wanted to explore it. That's why I'm speaking to you about it. If that's all of a sudden made you angry, please don't be angry at me for it. The reason why I even entertain these different opinions is because we need to consider, we need to understand everyone's way of thinking, whether that be right or wrong. I am of the belief that if you are under the age of consent and an adult approaches you, it is illegal. I don't care even if the child messages the adult first. We have an age of consent, and the reason why we have the age of consent is not look, this is the way I think it's being looked at incorrectly. Age of consent is not, in my eyes, age of consent is not the age that child can legally have sex with someone. It is, but it's more so the age of consent is there to protect the children who are of age groups underneath that age of consent. So what we're essentially saying is, here in England, the age of consent is 16. So if you are an adult, you cannot go near anyone who is under 16. It doesn't matter if they are forthcoming. It doesn't matter if they're engaging in the chat. It doesn't matter if they message you first. Here are the rules. If you are an adult, you do not go near anybody under the age of consent. Done. Now, it starts to become complicated because we've got an age of consent here in 16, and in America it's 18. So in America, if you are a 40-year-old and you sleep with a 17-year-old, it's illegal. But if you're a 40-year-old and you sleep with a 17-year-old here in England, it's legal. So that's a bit weird. And I wonder, it would be interesting to know the history of when these rules got made and why they got made in this way. So I've been thinking about bringing this particular part of the conversation to the table, all of this podcast, and I got to the end of the video and thought it would just be interesting to bring to the table, and I wonder what you think about it. But in summary, I did this because I want to paint a more broader picture, a more rounded picture. I want to encourage all parents to take this very seriously with teenagers hooked to the internet in today's culture. Them being online gives the world access to them when you are not there. And that is dangerous, and we have to accept the danger, and that means it must be a priority for us to speak to them on a regular basis about the internet, about its dangers, about that they can come to us and speak to us about anything that they want to speak about, and that will be a move in the correct direction. So thank you for listening to this podcast. My mind is now buzzing with the latter part of me bringing that very controversial part to the table. And did I explain it well enough? I'm not sure I did. And now I'm going to be thinking about it for 3 or 4 days constantly, because I don't think I did a very good job of it. But that's just I annoy myself with that part of the personality. Just let it be, Jeremy. You tried your best. It's difficult. It's confrontational. It's confusing. It's complicated. Just don't be so hard on yourself. I know these things, but it seems to be the way that I'm wired. Thank you very much for joining me on this podcast, and I'll see you again for another one.